Hi folks, welcome to this session. Today we talk about the most topic in project management, which is the earned value management. Participants in my workshops often have expressed about the topic being more complex to understand since it involves using the formulae and getting the results. I always suggest that it's important to understand the concepts better in order to realize that it's actually a very simple stuff. Let's try to get there and see if we can appreciate the concepts about the earned value and how to use the same to measure and report the project performance. Okay, before we move on, let's ask ourselves a few simple questions. As a professional PM, did you ever prepare regular project status reports, or did you understood the project performance variance, or did you attempt to highlight the current project performance, or did you derive and communicate project forecast? If your answer to any of the above is no, I suggest that you should continue to read on. Now let's look at what is earned value management in a very formal definition wise. So EVM, in short for earned value management, is one of the widely used scientific approach to measure, analyze, integrate project data to accurately report on current project performance and forecast the required performance for completion. So we may broadly find two types of PMs. One type of PM who judges the project based on subjective analysis, which will have more of assumptions. The inferences drawn out of such analysis will lead to major project risk at a later point of time with respect to time, cost and scope itself. On the other hand, we have PMs who track project progress by reasonable accurate performance measurements data on cost, scope and schedule. So they are more transparent in reporting project performance, trends, forecasts to stakeholders. Such a PM can also identify risk much early and work towards mitigating the same by appropriate risk management techniques. Okay, let's move on. So project performance analysis uses three key measurement parameters. They are scope, cost and schedule. Performance of the project is derived by comparing the planned progress versus the actual progress. While the three measurement parameters are dependent on one another, there are possibilities that cost may be doing bad, but scope and project schedule is under control. Any of such a combination can be possible. Having said that, poor project management may result in poor performance on all the three measurement parameters. In general, scope baseline, cost baseline, schedule baseline are together are referred to what we call as a performance measurement baseline. So then what is earned value? So earned value is a methodology to measure the project progress at any given point of time. So earned value helps to understand if the project is on track as per the plan. It provides a mechanism to ascertain the current project performance, a scientific tool which can provide early warnings of potential slippages, if any, on the cost, scope and schedule. Also, EV, which is the earned value, is a good indicator of trends of project performance over a period of time. Importantly, I think EV helps to forecast revised cost and schedule to complete the project based on the project current performances. So EV indicates the value or the worth of the project in monetary terms earned in the project at any given point in time, which means the value or the worth of the project at any point of time is what is the earned value of the project at a point in time. So this means that EV helps us to understand the real worth of the project work completed at any point in project, taking into consideration the cost that is spent so far, the time taken to complete the work and how much of project scope is done in the project. EV helps also to determine the variance from the planned value. Alright, let's move on. Now let us look at those key measurement components of EVM. So let's look at what is planned value. Planned value is nothing but the authorized budget. Authorized budget, which is nothing but the approved budget to be expended or to be spent for an activity or a work package or a milestone or to the project at a given point, which means it is a planned value. So what is then a budget at completion? This terminology is quite used very often. BAC stands for budget at completion. There is nothing but the total planned value or the PV at the end of the project. Then what is actually earned value? Earned value is the value of the work that is completed or that is performed expressed in terms of the authorized budget. So earned value is nothing but the value of work performed expressed in terms of the authorized budget. Now what is actual cost? Actual cost is the cost incurred or expended for the work that is performed at a given point to complete an work package or a milestone itself. So let's look at the formula to derive key measurement components of EVM. So let's look at how do we actually derive the actual value. So planned value is nothing but the planned percentage of work that is work complete into BAC. So how much of planned work that we plan to complete at a given point of time into BAC gives us the PV value. Earned value is nothing but the actual work that is complete into BAC. And the actual cost is, which is AC, is nothing but the cumulative money that is spent until a given point in time in the project. Now let's look at the performance reviews. Now using the above three key EVM measurement components, we can derive project performance reviews at any given point in time in the project life cycle. So variance analysis. So how can we derive those variances in a project at any given point of time? Let's look at the schedule variance. Schedule variance, you can derive it by using the formula SV is equal to EV minus PV. So SV is the schedule variance, EV is the earned value, PV is the planned value. Now if the SV equates to a value which is greater than 0, which means that the project is actually ahead of the schedule, which is a good sign for the project. If SV is less than 0, this means the project is behind schedule. And if SV is equal to 1, which means that the project is progressing as per the schedule plan. Now what is cost variance? Now cost variance, how can we derive cost variance? Cost variance we can derive using the formula CV is equal to EV minus actual cost, which is AC. The same way, if the CV is greater than 0, it is good. If the CV is less than 0, it is actually the performance is bad on the cost factor. And if the CV is equal to 1, which means the project is getting the work done as per the planned amount of money that was supposed to have been spent. Now let's look at some of the performance indicators of the project at any given point in time. So schedule performance index, which is SPI. Yeah. So SPI is you can derive it using the formula EV divided by PV, and if the SPI equates to a value which is greater than 1, which is actually a good sign, and less than 1 is actually a bad sign. So similarly, the cost performance index, you can derive it using a formula EV divided by AC. So if the CPI is greater than 1, which is good, and vice versa. Okay. So let's look at a forecast. How can we forecast the project future performances, or how can we forecast what could be the funding that is required in order to complete the rest of the project, and what would be the actual funds that would be consumed to complete the project. So let's look at in a forecast what is called as the estimate at complete. That means this is an estimate based on the project current performance, and this indicates the revised BAC. So it is nothing but revised BAC, meaning that the BAC was the original approved project authorized project cost, and the EAC is nothing but the revised BAC and may require approval from the sponsor if variance between the BAC and EAC is quite marginal. Now what is estimate to complete? So estimate to complete is nothing but this indicates the amount required to complete the rest of the project from the point of time that we are doing the performance analysis. Now EAC can be derived based on any of the three methods. Now before that, let's look at what is to complete performance index. So to complete performance index is an indicator and which will tell us how much of speed or performance is required to be applied in order to catch up with the plan in the remaining period of the project. So let's look at the three methods which can be used to derive the EAC. The first method involves adding AC plus BAC and minus EV, and this formula is used when initial assumptions when the cost was derived were actually flawed. That means it was actually done using a lot of assumptions, and it was actually flawed. Now the second method can be used, which is EAC is equal to BAC divided by cumulative CPI, that is the cost performance index. This is applicable when the project team believes in continuance of similar CPI going forward in the project life cycle. The third one is EAC is equal to AC plus BAC minus EV divided by the cumulative CPI and cumulative SPI. This is used when to balance both the schedule, the performance and the cost performances, so that the EAC can be reasonably realistic in the project is going forward. Okay, now let's look at actually what is called as the let's come to this. Before this, I want to explain something before this. So let's actually look at the TCPI. So TCPI can be derived by a formula called as it's work remaining divided by funds remaining, which is TCPI you can derive by using a first formula, which is BAC minus EV divided by the BAC minus AC. The first one is based on the values using the BAC. Reason being, if you believe that the estimates were reasonably good, you can use the first formula. And the second formula uses the EAC instead of BAC, and this is used when when there is a reasonable thing to believe that the original BAC was flawed, and then we have to use the revised BAC, which is nothing but the EAC. All right. So now let's actually look at an example with an illustration to understand this concept better. Now I have an example here where a project is supposed to deliver 5 deliverables A, B, C, D, E on the y-axis, indicated on the y-axis, and then there is a 7-week schedule for this project. So we have week 1 up to week 7. Now that is on the x-axis. Let's imagine that deliverable A starts on week 1 and ends at week 2. Similarly, deliverable B starts on week 1 and ends at week 4. And C starts on week 3 and ends at 5, and so on. Okay, as the project progresses, let's imagine that the project is just completed 4 weeks. We are in the 4th week of the project, and the PM is keen to measure the project performance at the end of the 4th week using the earned value management. Let us assume that for each deliverable we have a planned cost, okay, which is shown here in the red. So planned cost was actually arrived as part of the planning. Now deliverable A cost $500, deliverable B cost 2000, and so on. Okay. Now with this we know what is the BAC of the project. So if we just sum it up, we actually get the total planned value of the project, which is nothing but the BAC, which is $8,900. Now what is the planned value of this project at the end of the 4th week? Now what we have is the BAC is the total planned value. Now at the end of the 4th week, I want to know what is the planned value. So how can you derive this? So planned value is 4,900. I will just explain you in a bit. Okay. So planned value is of the project of the 4th week. This will be nothing but the 100% of cost deliverable A, which is 500, and it is 100% of deliverable B, which is 2000, and 50% of deliverable C, which is 400, and 2/5 of the deliverable D, which is 2000, and of course deliverable E is yet to start. So if you actually sum it up all this, you will actually get a planned value as at the 4th week of the project. Now let's see how much of work is completed for each deliverable at the end of the 4th week, how much of work we have completed. So let's assume that deliverable A is 100% complete, deliverable B is 75% complete, deliverable C is 50% complete. I am talking about the work completed as on the 4th week of the project, and deliverable D is about just 20% complete, and of course deliverable E is yet to start. Now these are the actual progress of the work that is completed in the project. Now with this, can we derive what is the earned value? Yeah, what would be the earned value here? Earned value equates to 3,400. That is because 100% of deliverable A is 500 plus 75% is about 1,500, which is 2,000, plus 50% here on the deliverable C, which is 400, 2,400, plus 1,000 because 20% only is completed for the deliverable D. So $1,000, which means my earned value, if I put together, I get a value of 3,400. Now going forward, let's look at another component, what is called as the actual cost. Now in order to complete this much of work, let us look at how much the PM has actually spent. So deliverable A has consumed $600, deliverable B $2,500, deliverable C is $600, and deliverable D is $2,000, and deliverable E is $0 because yet to start. Now what is the actual cost then? It is 5,700. Now if you look at these values, these basic values here, obviously it is very glaring that the project is not doing great, because the earned value is just about 3,400, but the actual cost is actually 5,700. That means so much is already spent on the project to only achieve about 3,400 worth of the project itself. Okay, with the help of EVM measurement components, one can derive the project performance, variances, and project and the forecasting also. So we can now derive the SV, CV, SPI, CPI, EAC, ETC, VAC, TCPI by applying the formula that we discussed earlier. Now to help you understand better and apply the learning so far, we have an exercise for you to try it out. You can post your values in the comment section, and all the best. Here is your exercise. So before that, let me read the actual problem. An ERP implementation project for ABC company is estimated to cost $500,000 with an estimated duration of 40 weeks. Now at the end of the 10th week, the project is about 20% complete, with $150,000 being already spent on the project until the 10th week. Now you are required to calculate or identify the key info from this exercise, like the actual cost, the BAC, etc. Then once you have it, then you can all proceed to calculate the planned value, earned value, cost variance, schedule variance, here it is, CPI, SPI, EAC, ETC, TCPI, and the BAC. So this will give you as an exercise, and you can try it out, and you can follow us on the next video, where you would like to actually get the actual explanation of this problem itself. Thank you so much for watching, and we look forward to see you in next videos. Thank you.